Greetings one and all, this is your host Grudgel again with another monthly build challenge video for Cordless VII's Vault VII Discord server. For the month of April 2018, the challenge is to build a tree house or a structure containing a tree or something to that effect. My tree house, as you can see here, has seen better days, for this is all that is left of two tree houses actually, joined by a wooden bridge suspended between the two. That was built by two young boys, two best friends, in the early 2070s. These two boys would come here and read their comic books and play with their toys, and they named it Fort Caldera. And they would defend Fort Caldera against hordes of invading aliens or communists or whoever. As the young boys got older, they stopped playing with the same toys, and they started shifting to model making and eventually into electronics. They had a mutual interest for science fiction, and one year one of them received a ham radio, the one pictured here. And that sparked an interest in an idea for the two of them. They decided to send a signal out into space where they would communicate and try to invite any extraterrestrials that might be out there to come to Earth. In order to achieve this, they attached this amplifying system right here to their ham radio. They recorded a message, an invitation, and they put it on a loop so that it would repeat. And then they attached this entire system to a bunch of satellite TV dishes that they had acquired from around the neighborhoods that were no longer in use by the residents. And they used those to transmit their signal out into space. A few years later, the bombs would fall, and the two boys were no more. But little did they know that someone would receive their message a couple of hundred years later. That someone would pilot their spaceship to the source of the signal and come crashing into Earth. Obviously, it wasn't intended to crash, but this extraterrestrial in their spaceship had received the signal and locked in their trajectory toward the signal source. And as they approached the Earth, they did slow their speed, but they were not ready for the amount of turbulence that they would receive upon entering our atmosphere. That ended up knocking the pilot around in his cockpit, which caused him to be knocked unconscious and wounded, and that precluded him from being able to conduct a safe landing. As his ship then came barreling in toward the source of the signal, it had no choice but to just crash into the ground, causing some damage to the treehouse, where the signal, of course, emanated from, as well as the ground around it. Here you can see some more of where the boys would play and keep their toys in their treehouse. And now you also see some example of what's going on now. Once that ship landed, the Institute took interest. They sent immediately some Gen 3 synths disguised to look like raiders to secure the site and examine it to see if they needed further investigation. Once they arrived here, they did determine that they needed further investigation. They reported back to the Institute. The Institute sent scientists and a full mobile lab. But they wanted to keep people away, and they knew the fear that the people of the Commonwealth have about the Institute, so they didn't want to advertise their presence. Therefore, they kept the Gen 3 synths as raiders and as guards for the area, for the site. They also had them assemble a scrappy-looking wall and defend it with turrets as well, and spotlights. They also had it decorated in raider fashion with corpses and spikes. All of this to try to keep any others who would be curious about the crash site away. As you can see, the location is surrounded by a scrappy junk wall with raider-looking guards and turrets. It all looks very raidery from the outside. But on the inside, something completely different. There's the boys' treehouse and the UFO crash site, and then there is the Institute Mobile Field Lab. They had these pods sent over with various research and analytical supplies and products inside in order to conduct their research on site of this extraterrestrial spacecraft landing. They also had, of course, some living pods sent down that have cots, military-style cots, in them for the personnel to sleep when they're not working. As you can see, they have a very austere environment for them. Not much in the way of entertainment or anything, but they do have a secure wall all the way around. In fact, it looks a little too organized for most of your scrappy settlement types. And that's kind of one of the dead giveaways if someone were to pay closer attention to the environment, to let them know that it's not necessarily a raider settlement, despite the spikes and the bodies on the outside. Plus, these power lines can be seen over the walls in some places. That would also give it away that it's not some scrappy raider settlement normally, like you would normally see. As you can see, this part of the treehouse was damaged from the crash. There's even some debris that fell out onto the ground, a lunchbox and a comic book. This other part of the treehouse was also crashed into by a tree that was damaged from the crash of the UFO as well. Behind the walls in the raider facade are the Institute research scientists conducting their research on this site to try to figure out exactly how this was successful, first off, in attracting an extraterrestrial here. Secondly, anything they can about the craft itself, any foreign bodies that may have been brought by the craft, foreign materials or emanations, because since they don't even know the point of origin of the craft, whatever may have been from that location, that planet or whatnot, would be foreign to Earth and could possibly cause environmental concerns, or could also be useful technology that the Institute could gain some benefit from. This would be research site number 1, as you can see, the crash site itself, as well as some blood pool that's there with a cone marking the blood pool location. This is an atmospheric sampling machine that is obviously gathering samples of the atmosphere and trying to determine any danger or positive effects from the craft being here. There's research site number 2, which consists of more blood pools. This individual is documenting those. As you can see, he's got a camera, and he also has his clipboard and his magnifying glass there. And he has cones to depict those blood pools. Down the path a little bit here is research site number 3, which consists of more blood, both on the rocks here as well as on the ground. And then research site number 4 is an extended site. It has blood pools on either side of that cone, as well as blood pools here and blood pools on the side of this cave entrance, and then the cave entrance itself. That all consists of research site number 4. They have construction lights to light up those areas, and not only for their analytical purposes, but also to keep people from stepping on any of the evidence that they're gathering. They also have a couple of sites where they're checking, the scientists and researchers are checking soil samples and the effects of these craft on small livestock and also on the soil and the plants and vegetation in the area. As you can see, there are a few researchers doing that. Inside the mobile lab pods, they have some studying equipment here. You can check the effects of the crash on things like the brain fungus here that's in the area, and they're checking samples of substances that were in the aircraft's engine, or the spacecraft's engine, nuclear power and stuff. And of course they also have the bathroom here for the staff. Over here, in these pods, this pod is simply for power and workshop. As you can see, it supplies power to many of the other pods and has spotlights on it. This pod is a biological lab where they are examining the pilot of the craft, who was found in the cave over at site number 4. A lot of good work is being done here. And then the final pod over here is full of analytical systems, analytical computers and whatnot, where they are compiling a lot of this data and comparing it to known materials and substances to determine and record the effects. As I said, the exterior looks Raiderish to complete the facade and to keep any curious individuals about the crash away, which of course the personnel over at Oberlin Station were curious when the crash occurred. They're the ones who told me about it and wanted me to come and investigate. They were concerned once they saw armed individuals, and they thought raiders were here, though. This is my build. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you like the storyline behind it as well. It's not the most extensive treehouse specifically per se, but I thought it fit well with the storyline, and it gave an explanation for what would otherwise be just a random event in Fallout 4, which is the crash of this UFO. And that was also kind of the purpose of this. Me personally, I really enjoyed putting this together. I like the story coming together. I liked the way the satellite dishes on the tree turned out. That's one of my favorite parts of the build. Another one is the damaged portion of the treehouse over here. Really like the way that turned out. I did all of my construction in workshop mode, not creation kit. So I'm proud of the way it turned out. I know it's not super extensive, but I hope everyone enjoyed it. If you do, give a like, and feel free to subscribe as well if you feel so inclined. From Fort Caldera, this is Grudgel, signing out. And here are some nighttime shots as we approach the gate on the lower level, down near the living quarters and the cave and research area number 4. You can see how that looks. A couple of turrets up above with a guard overlooking, and spotlights, spikes and bodies to keep that raider effect. Here's the gate above it. Spotlights again, torches, the raider effect, as well as mean looking guards and turrets overlooking these walls. Got another guard over here. Bodies on spikes. More spikes, spotlights, guard, turret, etc. Of course, the big walls around the outside here. Looking in on the crash site from the end here. They've even put a couple of ghoul bodies hanging from a spike stuck in that tree. And of course you have the lab area itself, how it looks at night. It's got spotlights for the work areas where the other individual was sitting researching in area 2 and looking at the blood pools. This area looks kind of cool with the atmospheric sampler and the crash site itself. Construction lights lighting up the blood pool in area 1. Up in the treehouse, you have a couple little candles that are lit, but you also have these little portable spotlights, little portable construction lights. Those are lighting up this research area. There's 3 of them lighting up this research area, for example. So that turned out pretty nicely. Of course, all the flames in the area from the crash site itself. And then this looks kind of cool too, I think. All the construction lights casting their light on their blood pool areas, their respective research areas, the study sites. I think that turned out pretty well. And then you got the, of course, sleeping area here. There's that first gate up there, or the back side of it at least. Up here you got spotlights from the wall above the sleeping area, excuse me, looking up at that path. And looking down at the water line. And watching the spikes over here as well. Got a guard back here keeping watch. So as you can see, I think the overall location turned out very well. I hope you're happy with the video and everyone enjoyed the story behind it. It was fun to make, like I said, in the daytime shots recording portion as well. And if you like it, feel free to do exactly that. Like it. Do a like and a subscribe if you'd like. I will see you all later on the next one, more than likely. Signing out.